Welcome to the second video on A3 problem solving. This video is designed to give you another example of how the A3 problem solving approach can be used to get to the root cause of a problem. In this video, we will also review the basics of each step of the A3 process as we go over the sample problem. Let's start with a quick review of A3 problem solving. Toyota Motor Corporation developed the A3 problem solving report as a tool to understand the root cause of a problem. By going through the process, the largest problem can be solved first, then repeated for any other issues that may be affecting the process. Premier Manufacturing adapted this approach by using an 8-step process to help identify the problem, determine the root cause, and create standards once the problem is corrected. The A3 document, named simply by the size of paper used, is broken down into sections for each step of the problem-solving approach. The A3 process engages participants in collaborative, in-depth problem solving, addressing the root causes of problems which surface in day-to-day work routines. The A3 process can be used for almost any situation, and when used properly, the chance of successfully eradicating a problem improves dramatically. Let's review the A3 problem-solving form. As we move through each section, we will also show the steps that are used for our sample problem.
The A3 problem-solving report form is divided into the following 8 steps. Step 1, identify the problem. Step 2, grasp the current situation. Step 3, set a target. Step 4, determine the root cause. Step 5, develop a countermeasure plan. Step 6, implement countermeasure. Step 7, confirm results. And finally, Step 8, standardize and control. In the top right corner of each box are the letters P, D, C, A, plan, do, check, and act. For each step, the circled letter represents which part of the process you are in.
In this video, we will work through the following sample problem.
A site was repeatedly failing to meet its profit target for the month. After efforts were made to control spending, the site was still not able to reach target. The site team reviewed and created reports on all items that were contributing factors. After not being able to quickly find an answer to their problem, they decided to use an A3 problem-solving approach. By using an A3, the site team knew it would not only help identify all the problem areas, but also highlight the area that they needed to address first. As we go through the form, we will look at some of the available tools that can be used and the tools that were used for this specific problem. The first stage of the Plan, Do, Check, Act process, or PDCA, is Plan. The first step in the A3 problem-solving process is to identify the problem. If the problem is not yet identified, a great way to start is with a brainstorming session. Be sure that everyone involved in this process is available to provide input. A theme selection chart can be used to answer some questions about the problem and come up with the theme. In this step, you will clarify the ideal and current situation and visualize the gap that is your problem. Once you have defined the gap between current and ideal, you have completed step 1 and are ready to break down the problem. The theme of our sample problem is sustained profitability. In step 1, we are simply identifying the problem. Try not to get caught in the trap of stating what you think might be the root cause. We use a chart to show a broad view of the problem. The site's goal is to reach its PFO target of 6% each month, and they are only achieving 3%. We address the current and ideal situations and then look at what is in the gap or the problem that is keeping us from reaching our ideal situation. In this case, the gap between the forecasted PFO and the actual PFO achieved for the site is 3%. The second step is to grasp the current situation. Instead of thinking about countermeasures already, it is first important to understand what is really happening. Use data to break down the problems into smaller, more concrete problems. Use division points such as who, what, when, or where. You should also use the concept of Genshi Genbutsu to go and see the problem. There is a process for everything, even non-manufacturing work. As you break down the problem and specify a point of cause by seeing the process, you should conclude this step with a more focused problem to engage. For our sample problem, we use a pair of graphs to show the costs that are affecting the site's profitability. From the first graph, it is clear to see that of the 4 costs shown, labor is over budget by 10%. By breaking labor down even further in another chart, we see that of all the labor costs, OT is over budget by 8%. So we state that the problem to engage is OT is over budget by 8%. Step 3 is set a target. Make the commitment to solve the problem. It needs to be measurable, concrete, and challenging. Specifically, it should define what will be done by how much and by when. It should be output oriented. What things do we want to achieve, rather than what things do we need to do? Our sample problem shows that overtime is currently running at 108% of budget. The site team sets a goal reducing overtime to 100% of budget by the end of the calendar year. Step 4 is critical to the A3 problem-solving process. By now, you should have a good grasp of the problem, a narrowed focus, and a specific target set. You should now ask why to further analyze the problem until we determine the root cause. Several different methods can be used: logic tree, fishbone, and 5 why. For our problem, we use a logic tree to break down the problem at hand. At the top of the tree, we state the problem, OT over budget. Next, we list all items that could have an effect on our stated problem. We list staffing, special requests, and weekend projects. After a quick review of the special request log and the weekend projects list, it is determined that neither of these affected the problem. They were then crossed out and the focus would be on staffing. On the next branch of the logic tree, we now want to list the items that affect staffing, attendance, and manpower. A quick report on attendance determines it is not an issue, so it is crossed out. The focus is now on manpower. By going through the site's scope of work and actual staffing, the problem to fix is stated as site staffing inadequate to perform scope, requiring excess OT to complete. Now that we have determined what we believe to be the root cause, in step 5 we develop a plan to address the root cause with a countermeasure. For problems with multiple proposals, a selection matrix can be used to prioritize the choices to help guide you to an appropriate decision. Each possible countermeasure can be scored in areas of cost, effectiveness, feasibility, durability, and influence. Then, total up the score for each possible countermeasure, and the highest score should then be looked at first for your countermeasure. Once you have selected a countermeasure, build a consensus amongst your team and create a clear and detailed action plan. Clarify roles and involve everyone. For our sample problem, we come up with 3 possible countermeasures. We then used a selection matrix to score each option to help select the best of 3 possible countermeasures. As you see in our matrix, the first option of add additional staffing scored highest on the selection chart. This should be the countermeasure you attempt first. We then created an activity plan to show who is responsible for each specific step. You should now notice in the top right corner of step 6 that we have moved from the planning stage to the do stage of the PDCA process. In step 6, we will implement countermeasures, collect data, regularly check and communicate progress, be consistent in any before and after comparisons, ensure no adverse effects at neighboring processes. In our sample problem, the activity plan was followed and each step was completed. Scope of work reviewed, staffing level determined, team members hired. We are now on the check step of the PDCA process. Step 7 is to confirm results. After implementing and sufficiently monitoring your countermeasure, it is now time to check your results against the target you set in step 3. If results are no good, you should try the next countermeasure or return to step 4 to revisit your root cause. For our sample problem in step 3, we wanted to reduce OT from 108% of budget to 100% of budget by the end of the calendar year. By tracking and confirming the results, we were able to use the graph to visually show that we reached the target. We are now ready for the act step of the PDCA process. Step 8 is to standardize and control the process. Standardize successes to prevent recurrence of the problem. Retrain affected team members and document improved standards. Create systems to sustain improved standards. Share improved standards through Yokoten. Yokoten is sharing of ideas to other areas that may have the same type of problem. For our sample problem, a plan is put into place to verify that monthly goals are achieved. Standards are created for comparing hours worked against scope to actual hours billed.
When working through the A3 problem-solving report, remember to try and use the ratio of 70% visuals to 30% words on your report. The A3 report should tell a story of your initial problem and portray how you worked through it to get to your solution. Thank you for watching. We hope this helps you gain a better understanding of the A3 problem-solving process.